I remember this comment by both you and Councilwoman Green was after we adopted the Healthy Infrastructure Plan, both of you said, okay, great, you've got this information about the tree canopy, what are you going to do with this data? Like, what's the plan?
You're going to present 31 slides to me.
So we're going to provide 31 slides to you. It's not, how did you, it's 45 minutes, yeah.
I'm trying to make some back.
I made you 30 in my last one, so remember that.
And for us, our forestry, although the trees are involved, I clarified this with someone yesterday, forestry is really about, also about nature and about all the aspects of a forest. And so you'll hear a lot of things that are talking about different types of plantings, not just trees, and how we're going to use that data and progress forward in adding more trees to our community.
All right, thanks, Claire. Number one park fan. So we're going to talk a little bit about what our background and goals are, how they were established during the Healthy Infrastructure, and we're going to kind of break down how we're addressing it through forest management, tech and equipment, restoration and habitat enhancement, and how we're connecting with the community and really communicating the importance of our urban forests. So you remember with the Healthy Infrastructure Plan, what made it really, really unique was the inclusion of our tree canopy survey, so that it's not just about the 10-minute walk to a park, but it's how we can bring the benefit of parks to everybody's front door, not just because it's a nice to have, because it makes all of us more healthy. It makes it easier for us to thrive in this community and move around this community. And so we did a big forest survey, to Claire's point. That was like a 30,000-foot view of our urban forest. Then we worked with our partners to look at six specific sites throughout the community where we did specific inventories of types of trees, and we also established air quality monitoring baselines in those areas. And then we worked with HAF after that to do a few specific site surveys so that we could get an idea of how we could manage specific spaces like LL Woods or some of our medians, and you'll hear a little bit about that later. And this was all built and born of Lewisville 2025 and the Green Centerpiece Master Strategy. And remember the Green Centerpiece when we get into a little bit about the details of the urban forest. And it also was informed by our restoration plans for specific places like Leela and Thrive Nature Parks. And then all of these things inform our business plan about how we move forward to achieve these common goals and visions. So in the Healthy Infrastructure Plan, Goal 5 was what pertains to the tree canopy. And the big thing is that our ideas and our objectives, we want to preserve what we have and grow the tree canopy. And that's a really hard thing, right? And our primary action steps are the priority action steps are in bold, and that was trying to create data sets for suitable planting areas, establishing an urban forestry unit, and the rest of them are aligned to protect and grow that canopy, to do it with data, and then to work with our community members to make it happen. And we've kind of broken those things down into these 4 areas, and we'll talk a little bit about what we've done, what's going on right now, and what we're forecasting. And just a reminder about the urban canopy and what we learned during the Healthy Infrastructure is we have about 1.62 million trees, and that roughly shakes out to about 55 per acre in the community. And about 47% of that is tied up in parks in Leela. But if you separated out parks in Leela would be up in like the 31% standpoint, and parks would be in about 14. The other thing to remember about that is important is 14% of that is on undeveloped land. So think about the places that we're getting platted right now. The other thing to remember is that we learned, and is really important, is that 68% of our canopy is 6 inches or smaller. So our DBH. We have a young forest here. And about 15% of our canopy are exotics. Now, natives are included in exotics. Not all exotics are bad, but they aren't hardened to survive our natural weather. And just a reminder, one of the things that's really important about this, we're in our 30th year as a designation as a Tree City USA, probably heading to 31 in the next couple of weeks. And that shows a long-standing commitment to growing this and protecting this forest. This is a little bit of a snapshot of our public tree management over the last several years. And really, this has been a reactive and kind of responsive approach to tree management. You'll see in FY24, that kind of reflects when we had the big storms. Remember in May of 2024, our canopy took a hit. It was probably a 3 to 4% loss then. And our planting and kind of shows that there's no way we can keep up just with the loss of what's happening in our own system, never mind what's going on in terms of development and loss and vacant property. So we really, really need to develop a strategic way to manage our system and to reuse our tree mitigation funds. So, if you'll remember, when the Healthy Infrastructure Plan was being developed, before it was adopted, we were doing UDC updates. So we didn't know all that we know now about the urban forest, but we knew enough to help update the UDC, that where we went and we said, hey, let's make sure that when development comes in, that the entire piece of property is counted in tree mitigation, right? But to get there, we had to give a little bit back to developers, so we increased the DBH requirement for mitigation from 6 inches to 8 inches. We didn't know yet how young our urban forest is. But we also made some things where we took invasive species off the list of things that are okay to plant. So we really made some good strategies, and it has helped our protect what we've got there. But we can do better. Just like the chief said, when we know better, we should do better, right? So what we're doing right now is we are participating in development review, and Eric and Jose sit in all the reviews. They look at the tree surveys that come through with plans. They give advice. They say where things might be off, and Richard and his team help us go back and forth there. We've also gotten a Texas Forest Service community grant to help look at some specific areas where we need to increase our canopy, and we're learning a little bit more about what is happening at the federal level will impact that, but it is going to help us inform and make recommendations about how we might strengthen the UDC in the future. Not only looking at that, the inches at DBH, but also, to Claire's point, one of the things that she's real interested in is, hey, when we've got commercial landscaping that's been in place for 20 years, it starts to die, and we give them a code enforcement letter that says you need to replace it, rather than going back and putting in trees and plants we know won't survive. How do we update that to give them the flexibility to put in the natives that we now know better, right? How do we get there? And then how do we mimic some of our partners and partner cities' development agreements to give us the flexibility to work with developers to when they do parkland development, to work with them to do it all at once, so that the park and the tree canopy is protected, but also cohesive with what's going around there. And so, we work with Liz and her team a lot to try to get that done on a singular basis, and every time we don't really have a template to get there. So we really need to talk about how we do that. And then in the future, how do we make sure that when we are redesigning streets, that we include the complete street design principles to enhance the tree canopy along the places so it's easy to walk to the parks. So we've done all that, and that's what we're looking at on the urban planning side. On our forestry unit, we have realigned the resources from the vacant sustainability manager and folded that under Chris Chastain's leadership in the preserve and green belt manager. And we've hired Eric. I'll tell you a little bit about him in a second. And we've realigned within the Parks Department, moved a crew leader over so that that group can start working together. We were fortunate enough to be awarded an intern under the city manager's program there. We've recently hired our intern, and Lauren, she's on board, is going to be helping us with some mapping. And then you're going to hear a little bit about how we want to improve the data management system that we use for the urban forest to inform what kind of crew complement do we need, what kind of contractual supplement do we need to adequately take care of the urban forest. So I told you that we had 1.625 million trees, so that's about 550,000 trees per staff member right now. So our urban forester is Eric D'Antonio. He joined the department about 2 years ago in the Preserve and Greenbelt division, and he comes with a robust background in urban forest management and earned the promotion, has really been taken off, and he is just as passionate about trees as I am about parks, so you're about to go for a ride. And he leads Cliff and Lauren, our interns, so I'm going to hand it over to him so he can talk a little bit about what we've been doing so far.
Is this on?
It is on.
Great. And I know. Don't tell my wife you gave me a microphone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about management plans. What we've done so far, and the director had talked a little bit about how we had a partnership with Half and Associates, and they did an excellent job. And this came directly after the institution of the Healthy Infrastructure Plan. So they did 6 geographic tree inventories, Wayne Ferguson Plaza, Wayne Frady Park, LL Woods, which is right here. We'll talk a little bit more about it. And I'm going to tell you exactly how I use that investment of $32,000 and how that promotes our canopy, okay? What we're currently doing right now is we are working on our tree inventory. The urban forestry team goes to Central Park, and we measure the trees and we evaluate them. That is a great thing. We're really making a nice comprehensive inventory. However, the challenge is it's moving at a glacial pace. It is very, very time consuming. Since November, we've inventoried about 300 trees. We estimate we have almost 28,000 trees to inventory in public areas. So that's going to probably be a little less than 6 years, probably a little more. And I'll tell you why time is important when we get to this next slide. So what are we doing with this information? We invested this money. How does it help us? Okay, so this is LL Woods, and this is LL Woods. And I didn't buy a bag of Skittles and glue it on here, okay, even though it looks that way. So I filtered the information from an inventory by species. Why is that important? Well, let's say we fear the onset of oak wilt. I can push a button and I can tell you that there's 23 bur oaks at LL Woods, so I do need to go visit there and inspect trees. Let's say we're concerned about emerald ash borer, which we are. I can push a button and I can tell you there are no green or Texas ash trees in LL Woods. That's huge. That's huge. I can tell you there's 31 cedar elms. Why is that important? What if there's an onset of cedar elm blight? This next slide is extremely important. It's very, very valuable to an urban forester. And someone might say, well, why? It looks like a kid's coloring book. But it's a living, changing document. Okay? So you look at this, and a person like, first of all, council members, this is your budget right here. This is how we do the budget. This is our budget. That's how valuable it is. So I look at this document, and I can tell you there's 23 trees, dead or diseased, that need removal, already helping me with my budget. and my personnel needs and my equipment needs. I can tell you there's 155 trees that need some sort of crown cleaning, dead branches removed, the crowns raised, thinning, to keep our canopy safe and to keep the public safe. I can tell you that there's 8 stumps that need to be removed. So this does a lot of things. Most important of all, it's the building blocks of a tree management plan which will help protect our canopy and grow it. Secondly, it's going to provide valuable metrics which will help us determine future budgets, future personnel needs, future equipment needs, and so forth. And it also reminds us of the immensity of the task, that a crew of 2 with an intern have and what we're facing.
And can't wait to hear
All right. Good afternoon, council members. So now we want to talk about some of the tools we have in our tool belt and some of the tools we could have in our tool belt. So when we're talking about GIS, surveying and inventorying, what we've been able to do so far is we currently have ArcGIS as a platform in our city, and there is a tool within ArcGIS known as Survey 123, and it's a very powerful tool. What we've been able to do is take those criteria and inventory sets that have provided in those initial surveys, build them out ourselves into a way that now we can access it on a smartphone and do these inventories out in the field as you're seeing here in the second image. Previously, this would have been done on paper or in Excel sheets and been very time consuming. So we're making sure that we're using the resources available to be as efficient as possible, because as Eric explained, even with that advancement we're doing, it's going to take a very long time doing on-the-ground inventories this way. So we are using that with staff-led efforts, with assistance from some of our volunteer groups, such as the Citizen Foresters. We've even taken this year's group of the Youth Action Council and gotten them involved, our Texas Master Naturalists and others. And what that looks like in the end is, as you see here on the right-hand side, is this is a current screenshot of what our inventory looks like in our GIS dashboard. These orange dots are actually the trees that were surveyed from those half studies, and these yellow push pins are showing some of the spots that our staff work has been able to fill in. So while we are making progress, we have a long ways to go, and so we want to talk about how can we possibly expedite that process. So when we discuss equipment and software, some recent pieces of equipment that we've acquired in the last 2 years are a stump grinder and a chipper. Both of these pieces of equipment we found to be a need based on the previous and current workloads that we have. There's, as you saw in that first slide, that we had more and more tree removals, which leads to more and more stumps, and we had a need to address those quickly in order to move on with our work. And so instead of waiting for contractors to schedule that work or depending on rental equipment, it made sense for us to go out and purchase a stump grinder, and now we can respond to those much more quickly, and we're getting our money's worth out of that investment. And with chipper, it's a lot of the same reasoning. The extra benefit we get from a chipper is that as we're pruning branches and taking down trees, instead of just generating more timber that's going to end up in a landfill, we can now chip it up, turn it into mulch, and recycle that material into other parks projects. So we're really getting 2 birds with 1 stone on that. In progress, our maintenance teams are, of course, maintaining this equipment and being the ones out in the field. They're the ones making this assessments on future needs that could possibly benefit our work teams. One of those that is being considered would be the addition of something similar to a bucket truck. And so bucket trucks allow us to do high altitude work, removing branches or even in tree removals. Currently, we rely on either having contractors conduct that work, or there are times in the year that we'll rent a bucket truck. As we complete these inventories that we're talking about, that's going to help inform the decision if possibly pursuing the purchase of a bucket truck is something that we might need to consider. And so forecasting, other software that might be available. In the city of Lewisville, we're already using drones for different things, especially in public safety, and urban forestry work is no different. Quick applications are just taking regular aerial photos so we can track the progress of the canopy just from a coverage aspect, and also it can help us with any high-level inspections that might be done. If there's a branch we can't tell if it's a hazard or not, instead of renting a bucket truck or putting someone in an unsafe situation with a ladder, we can get a drone up there and get a really quick high-quality image, and that helps us out. The big thing that we want to talk about that we're looking at is LiDAR and software known as Tree Keeper. So LiDAR stands for Light Detection and Ranging. You're not going to be quizzed on that later. Just want to clarify if anyone was curious. But essentially, if you're familiar with what a Google Maps or Google Earth vehicle looks like, it's usually a little sedan or car that drives down the street and has all kinds of computers and cameras on the top. That's essentially what's happening here. It's emitting out millions and billions of lasers, and they reflect off the surface and come back. And then it's able to paint or generate a picture of the surrounding area. And so you can see it picks up streets and electrical lines, but what we really want to see is it can render trees for us. And it does this at such a high quality, and using new applications of AI, it can tell you the height of the tree, the species of the tree, the leaf coverage of the tree, essentially build out a full inventory of the same criteria that we're doing on foot, but at a much, much faster pace. All that data is then collected and dropped into a software known as Tree Keeper, where our teams then have the ownership of that data, can manipulate it, and can build out management plans from that. And so the pace at which this moves is they could inventory 27,000 trees in a period of 40 weeks. So that's scanning the trees, collecting the data, dropping into Tree Keeper, delivering it to us, and that would also come with a 5-year management plan with it, with budget considerations as well, all in the period of less than a year. Very, very powerful. And so we have a quick 90-second video that kind of demonstrates what this looks like in real time. And to clarify these two companies, Hill is the company that utilizes the technology and takes care of the scan, and then Davey are urban forestry experts, and they would oversee the management and the inventory that is delivered to us. We've talked about if we're able to do this, some of our team members might climb up into the tree to see if they show up in the scans when we get them back, but we'll see what that looks like. Moving on to other technology we're utilizing, air quality monitoring. So part of the healthy infrastructure plan process was the installation of air quality monitors and ambient heat monitors at areas of town so that we could get a good idea, a baseline of what air quality was like. And so there on the far left, you're seeing a scan of the triangle area where Glory Park is, and that's from November of 2022. Lots of yellows and oranges on that, which is kind of in the moderate to slightly unhealthy measure of air. What we're doing in progress is through our Texas Forest Service grants, we are going to be installing additional ambient heat monitors and air quality monitors. And what's important is that the way they are located, this would give us a network that can cover the entirety of Lewisville. So we'll be able to collect this information at any location. And then to show what that looks like as time goes on, is this is a scan now of that same area, but done last month. And now you see a lot less of the orange, and you actually start to see a first spot of green. Which is good, healthy air, and that green dot is right next to Glory Park, where of course we planted 86 trees as part of that construction. So we're already seeing the impacts of that, and again, these are newly planted trees. As they continue to grow, we expect to see those results even go further and further. And then also as an additional benefit to residents is we can utilize these air monitors to add widgets to our park pages so that if you're interested in visiting a park on a certain day, you can drop by and see what the current air quality is and help inform your visit if it's a good day to go out or not. So moving on to restoration and habitat enhancement, as was mentioned, is urban forestry is clearly about trees, but the urban forest is impacted by things beyond trees as well. So So with extending the green and taking a highlight on our pollinator areas, we've completed a number of pocket prairies as well as pollinating some of our roadway medians and green ribbon projects in town. Today in Lewisville, we are at 70 acres that we've been able to convert from turf grass into pollinator areas. Other things we're working on are those restoration plans that were mentioned up at the top. We have restoration plans both at Leela and Thrive Nature Park, and what's important about those is it breaks these areas into management zones, and each of those zones come with plans for invasive species removal and planting plans for a number of trees and species of trees. So we're using those as guides for where we conduct future plantings in those areas. And looking ahead, we're always looking for new areas within our park system to complete more of these projects. And as the city considers potential future green ribbon sites, we'd like to approach those with the same mindset, get some wildflowers in there, and we're already working on plans with the Hebron Parkway construction that's happening. We want to talk about IES, Integrated Environmental Solutions. They're a vendor that we've been working for the last 3 or 4 years now. We completed a big project out in the Prairie Creek area just south of Home Depot on I-35. They went through a project where they first mechanically cleared invasive species using a hydro axe. Then they went back with a finer approach and did some hand clearing, finally applying herbicides to stunt any regrowth and make sure that the invasive material never came back as much as we can. You're never going to 100%, but we're making big strides out there. And then finally, on Arbor Day of last year, we did a planting event where we installed 690 trees and shrubs out there. It was a massive, massive undertaking, but now we see the increased biodiversity of the area, and we've given all those new saplings and plants a chance to survive with that earlier work that's been done. It was so successful that now we're implementing the same approach in other areas of Lewisville. Central Park was broken into 3 separate zones, and so we've done the invasive removal of Zone 1, and this year we'll be following up to complete Zones 2 and 3, and then planting each of those zones this fall. Again, on Arbor Day is a great way to celebrate, and we'll do the same thing at Wayne Freddy Park as well. Once we complete these projects, we're already starting to have conversations about where we could go next. Our management plans can help inform that, but just early thoughts would be possibly Timber Creek, Duvie Properties, and the rodeo grounds. And then we want to show some love to our Texas Master Naturalists. We have a deep and meaningful relationship with this group. In Tad's presentation earlier, he kind of showed how many volunteer hours Parks is able to generate every year. The Texas Master Naturalists are the largest portion of that number that Parks is putting out, especially in places like Leela, Thrive Nature Park, and other places as well. So we do have a formal agreement with the Texas Master Naturalists, and most recently, an opportunity we were proud to partner with them on was going through a sustainability and practice program through NRPA. It's very similar to the 10-minute walk to a park initiative, but more from a lens of sustainability, kind of showing cities how to implement sustainability, doing a measurement of your current practices and how you can enhance them. And it also comes with a $10,000 stipend that goes to the community partner to help spur sustainable efforts in Lewisville. So they've collected that money, and we're going to be able to utilize that and put that straight into some of our tree planting efforts. In progress, as we mentioned, we have established projects with this group at Leela, Thrive Nature Park, and then a project known as Extending the Green, which kind of allows us to go all over town. And so at Leela and Thrive Nature Park, we're primarily working on those restoration plans. And with Extending the Green, what that looks like is helping with those pollinator efforts, as well as all the work that they contribute into the Roots for Wings program. So looking ahead, we look forward to one day completing those restoration plans and then further growing the Roots for Wings program, which Eric will talk about in a little bit when he gets to our community engagement session, and then always expanding education opportunities, both at places like Thrive and of course out at Leela, and just finding new ways that we can outreach to the community.
I'm going to try to stay in my shoes because I'm going to get excited about some of these next things. So our centennial plans, I was really pleased that the city included trees in the centennial plans. I think that's very, very classy. Where have we been? Well, we've recently established a memorial tree program to celebrate our 100-year anniversary with centennial trees. So we're allowing residents to sponsor native to Texas trees for $500. We will take care of the tree, and we're doing that in 5 different what we call centennial groves. So from Garden Ridge to Castle Hills and everywhere in between. This is a direct engagement of our residents, of our communities, and their families. What's going on right now? We're establishing and growing a Service Saturday volunteer program. Why? What's the goal? The goal is to make our community look better. So what's going on is the third Saturday of every month, volunteers come and they take part in activities to help beautify Lewisville. So, for example, in June, July, and August, we're going to attack some of the creek and riparian areas throughout Lewisville, like the green belts and so forth. In December and February, we removed a shiitake load of privet from Thrive Nature Park. And while we were there, we picked up trash. In January, we went to Glory Park. We wrapped 70 trees to protect them from sunscald, and we picked up trash. So this is growing, and we're really excited about the direction. The next thing I call the HAG. Hairy Audacious Goal. And our hairy audacious goal is to plant 2,025 trees in the centennial year of 2025. We have identified dates and we've identified locations. We just don't know what we were thinking, but we're going for it. What's going to happen in the future? I'm really, really excited. We're going to have an Arbor Day Bash on November 1st like no other. This is going to be a huge celebration. So at Central Park and Wayne Frady Park, we are planning on planting more than 1,800 native plants and trees. That's crazy, but we're going to do it. And guess how many volunteers we're going to use to help us? Not 2,025, 100 for the centennial year. So something that's really great is, you can control what's planted on public spaces, but you can't control what's planted in someone's front yard. So in order to positively influence that, we've visited with other cities and studied some websites, and we've determined and come up with a two-prong attack to help grow trees where we need them. So the first program, we're kind of affectionately calling it Branch Out Lewisville. You get it? Man, you guys are tired.
Just leave it there and we'll get it in a minute.
You'll get it when you wake up tomorrow morning. So Branch Out Lewisville targets areas that were outlined in the Healthy Infrastructure Plan. These are underserved areas outlined in the HIP, okay? And how are we going to do this? We're going to use volunteers to identify the locations and the homeowners. We're going to use city staff to carry the administrative burden, and then we're going to use contractors to plant the trees. So that's targeted for the city of Lewisville where we need tree canopy the most. The second part is a successful program we already have in neighborhood services. It's called the Property Enhancement Program, or PEP. What we would like to do is piggyback on that program and enhance it, identify more prospects, market it harder, and if we need to, even, provide a little bit of a financial boost. So it's a great, successful program. It's citywide, and we'd like to really give it a boost. This is the second most favorite part of my job, community engagement. So what have we done? We've had public presentations. The last 4 have been about oak wilt. We're also planning presentations on proper pruning, proper planting, maybe even a plant healthcare diagnosis type workshop. This is a direct engagement with our citizens, with their families, and with their communities. We have been a Tree City USA designation for 30 years, as the director had said, and this is huge. It's a big deal. We have actually gone out and in 5 different thoroughfares entering the city, we now have signs. I think in the past we only had 1 or 2, and they humbly brag that we've got it for 30 years. And maybe by Monday morning it might be 31 years, but we're expecting it any time. We were instrumental in forming a Lewisville Citizen Forester Group. Okay, what is a citizen forester? These are volunteers that take 6 weeks of classes, tree biology, tree identification, proper planting, proper pruning, etc., tree diagnosis, and they learn all about trees, right? And these are our volunteers, and they've actually been my strong right arm, and we're the ones that inspired and started this, and they've been hugely helpful in our inventory efforts. They're also going to help in our identification in the branching out program. So we talked about tree inventory with volunteers. That's been ongoing. We're going to do spring and fall plantings. In the spring, March, April, and May, we're going to plant. And in the fall, October, November, and December, we're going to plant. Something that's really cool is we started an urban wood utilization program, and that's in its infancy. And this is in partnership with LISD. And what does that mean? Chris talked about, using mulch and so forth. Well, there's wood, and we don't burn a lot of firewood here. On the East Coast, we leave the firewood stacked up, and people come take it. So here, we're filling our landfill with it. So what we decided is we contacted LISD, and Tech West has a wood shop, and that professor, I want to call him a professor, that director of that wood shop was doing backflips when I told him I could provide him with straight logs of different. So they've started to come and get it. They've budgeted money to purchase a sawmill, and they're welding a bar and a winch on their trailer so they can come pick it up, and my team doesn't have to bring it to them. So what are we doing? What are we planning? This Roots for Wings commercial branch, you'll get that tomorrow morning, Roots for Wings commercial, is just an incredible, promising idea. So this is Lewisville. We have a lot of churches. We have a lot of businesses. We have some warehouses. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could transform all of those manicured lawns that people are spending money on fuel and labor, and it's giving off, greenhouse gases and particulates, if we could convert all of those into pollinator prairies with native trees. You want to talk about extending the green? This program could really, really extend the green, and it's very, very promising. The last thing we're going to do, and then I'll let you guys go back to sleep, is we're going to start an urban forestry webpage. And, the purpose of that would be kind of like educate residents, promote different things, to be transparent, promote sustainability, and so forth. Thank you.
Good job. Mayor Council, you can see they don't let us get into a brainstorming session very often because it just spins into great things. But no, they've been making a big push on, with small resources, trying to tackle a very big program. And we've made some progress here, but the way that we are going to accelerate that progress and move quick enough to meet our goal of preserving our current tree canopy is we need to leverage data and technology to quickly get through our inventory. And so that's our plan to move forward quickly with that. And then that once we have that, so it's also going to be like a boost where we can get to realization of a lot of these action steps. We want to make sure that we have a comprehensive, intentional effort of taking care of our urban tree canopy, and we're going to be on track to achieving those goals soon. The discussion points that we wanted to make sure that you're fine with is, as we kind of come to the tail end of our Texas Forest Service grant and identify best practices for how we might update the UDC to protect the Forest Service more. Is that something y'all are interested in at least hearing the recommendations for? It's going to be a challenge. We're going to work with Richard and his team to work that through the Parks Board and planning and zoning, but we feel that a lot of those changes are important if we're going to protect what we have and give us the resources to replant when we can't. The other thing is is trying to get your tolerance on really working on making sure that we have the capacity to enter into park development agreements and working with the legal department and finding best practices in the metroplex around here, and if you're interested in those types of things.
And council, that park development agreement, I think we're going to need to bring that back to you guys to kind of do a full briefing on what other folks are doing, but also I think there's a balance in having to understand the legal ramifications on those things too, so we'll bring that back to you guys if you guys are interested in hearing about it.
Council, any questions or concerns about those first 2 bullet points?
I'd be willing to hear more about it. I mean, obviously, it's all about the details of what exactly we're going to do, so it's worth conversation.
Right.
And when we're talking about park development agreements, that's where a developer comes in and they say, I'm going to build X, and instead of paying you the park fees, I'm going to develop a park and hand it over to you because I think I can do it cheaper.
Correct. And timing-wise, on our part, and continuity and protection of the tree canopy at that time would better be facilitated that way.
Yeah, I have no issue with that. I've seen other cities do it. I know there's a process somewhere that somebody's done with that.
Yeah, we reached out to a couple of nearby cities, so Flower Mound, Denton, South Lake are doing it.
Yeah, it's interesting that there are definitely some constraints, but for example, school districts, they'll get an entire campus built in a community. A developer will come in and they'll say, well, here's where your elementary school is, and they'll build it out and then hand it over to the
We just want to make sure, we want to make sure we're not breaking any rules in terms of procurement and that, and making sure that we can meet our standards, but we think if we all work together, we can get there.
Super.
The next thing would be is just to make sure you're okay with our focus on the residential tree enhancement program with working with Chris McGinn and Ashley and the team on the PEP focus and expansion, but the branch out. And one thing I failed to say when we were talking about the vastness of the urban tree canopy is 19% of it is on our residential property. So protecting that part of it is a significant amount of our urban forest.
Was any of this informed by your visit down to San Antonio?
Yes, but exactly. That's where we heard it at TRAPS. We went to go visit, and then we've been doing some research of how other communities are doing it. And so this is going to be a pilot program to kind of come back and do like co-care. Like if we know better, then we'll
do better.
Do better.
Okay. Questions on that one?
I personally like it. I know a neighbor of mine with the freeze and everything, her tree has gone through a tremendous amount of stress where the leaves were dying in the summertime. She had it trimmed back, and hopefully it's coming back, but I think that'll be great for folks who have tree canopy to protect that tree canopy going forward. I like the thinking outside the box to kind of make the city better.
Thanks. And then the tolerance for looking for an expansion of the Roots for Wings program to a commercial component. It's just, 96? Yeah. 108 people have gone through the Roots for Wings program, and now it's time to branch out.
I think this is a great idea. I think this is, if we're looking to save water, it's probably the commercial owners that are probably the ones that need help on this. They got a business and they need help on. They got other things to look at, but landscaping. But if they got help to do it, then maybe they'll be willing to understand it, willing to do it, and that saves water, saves resources, and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
That's good timing. Our UDC has landscaping requirements, right?
Right.
So, it seems like if we want to push the Roots for Wings program into commercial, that we should modify our landscaping requirements to kind of match up with the program.
And I think those things will kind of roll all three of those would then roll together with that to make sure that all aligns and inform us where there might be gaps in the UDC that prevent us from doing it most effectively.
Yeah.
Cool. Other comments?
the urban forestry band on the website. You know, whatever you guys do, make sure you have videos to educate folks, especially on Roots for Wings. I see a lot of, fortunately, there are a lot of people who correct them that talk about the natural scapes that we have. And they're like, oh, this is terrible. I'm like, and people say, no, this is what it is. So just kind of continue that in videos and educating those and, you know, commercial owners as you guys go. I think it's a fantastic plan. I went through it.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
All right, before you leave, are you going to take a bow? Never mind, I'm moving on.
That was the joke.